Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the third Communications Industry Expo for the George Washington University. I'm Meg Gottlieb with the Grad School of Political Management. We welcome you all today. We're not going to waste any time because we have an all-star lineup here today. We appreciate all of our panelists coming and joining us and sharing some information. First off, I'm going to introduce Nick Fabiani, who was last year in a seat out there. And now he is employed because why? Because he came to this expo. He's just going to speak for a moment. He's with ABCO Worldwide now and just tell you about his experience quickly. Thank you, Nick.
Hello. So as Mag said, I was one of you guys last year. I came because one of my friends really encouraged me to come to the career fair because she said it would be good because I didn't know what I wanted to do. And so I came and I ran into the HR person at my company. We got to chatting, I got some interviews, and I got a job. So it was a great progression of events for me. But I think, you know, I would really encourage you guys to continue going to career fairs. I think it's a great place to meet lots of different people. Maybe outside the realm of what you thought you wanted to do. I never would have thought of myself as, you know, a public affairs, public relations person, but I love my job and I love what I'm doing. So I would really encourage all of you to, you know, think outside the box, really go to events like this, keep putting yourself out there, and I know all of you, because, you know, you're all smart people, will get jobs very, very soon. So good luck. Is there anything else? Okay.
Thank you very much, Nick. Nick has kindly agreed to be an alumni ambassador, so he'll be in the room next door after our panelists speak. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce Professor Michael Shanahan from the School of Media and Public Affairs. He's going to introduce our panelists and pose some questions to them. After our panelists speak, then we're going to introduce all the employers that will have tables next door. Thank you very much again to all of you for coming today.
Hi, everybody. I am Mike Shanahan. I'm the Assistant Director of the School of Media and Public Affairs across the street and an Assistant Professor of Journalism. This is a terrific event. It gives you an opportunity to not only to meet people who might hire you like Nick got hired, but to stretch yourself a little bit and talk to them about what jobs will be like in the places where the people that you're going to talk to next door are going to be set up and be happy to talk to you. The purpose of this little gathering is to kind of give you a taste of that and talk to a diverse group of panelists who can give you a little bit of advice on how to look for a job, what kind of experiences you ought to have and look for in the job market. We're still looking for Bill Black of Fleischman Hilliard Global Affairs Practice, and he may be here in a minute. Also to my left, P.J. Crowley, a fantastic guy who's he's a perfect example of how in this world, he's afraid of what I'm going to say now.
I'm curious.
He had 26 years in the United States Air Force, a full career all around the world. And out of that military experience, grew a position. I was a special assistant to former President Clinton. And then within the Obama administration, he was an Assistant Secretary of State for Public Affairs in the State Department. And now we have him. And he has been a great addition to the faculty in SMPA. He is what we call a fellow. I'm a fellow, he's a fellow.
Fine fellow.
But seriously, look for him in some of your classes, and he's going to appear in a number of forums around the school. Next to PJ is Kim Hunter. My God, she graduated from SMPA in 2007. And then from
Masters in 2007.
And then got a master's degree from the Graduate School of Political Management in 2008. And she currently serves as a press secretary to the One campaign. I had to look it up. Anybody know what the One campaign is? Correct me if I'm wrong, but it's basically designed to encourage governments around the world to invest more in development and relief, to give a bigger priority to those elements of foreign policy around the world. She previously served as press secretary for Senator Webb from Virginia, and before that she worked as a surrogate scheduler for the Obama for America 2008 Democratic Committee and was an assistant press secretary at the Democratic National Committee. And next to Kim is Catherine Lux, who is program director for career services and endorsed programs for the American Society of Association Executives. It always struck me as amazing that there is an association for associations.
Yes, there is.
But I know from personal experience that it is an extremely important organization in the association world, and if you know how the associations work, that there are tremendous jobs to be had with a lot of different kinds of career and professional specializations available in association life. There are 22,000 association executives and industry partners in the Society of Association Executives. And she manages ASAE's online career center, a really good person to know. It includes an online job board, coaching, and resume services. So I would get to know Ms. Lux. She is a graduate of DePaul University with a degree in English literature and communications. Did you think you were going to be an English professor, or no?
I didn't know what I was going to do.
Next to Catherine is Moshe Wanunu. Moshe was in my very first journalism class that I taught in the School of Media and Public Affairs, and despite that, he has succeeded. It's remarkable. He's also a guy who proves the point that, unlike my generation, at least my generation in journalism, you guys are unlikely to stay in one place for very long. He has been an international editor for Bloomberg Television in New York, political producer at Fox News Channel, where he worked on Chris Wallace's Sunday morning show, held earlier jobs at NBC Sports and ABC News. He was a political communications graduate in SMPA and earned a master's degree from the Elliott School. So for a guy who can't hold a job for very long, he certainly is doing pretty well. We gave a list of suggested questions to our panel. Oh, hi.
Excuse me.
Have a seat. Mr. Black has arrived.
Drum roll.
Mr. Black, Bill Black is the co-chair of Fleischman Hillard's Global Public Affairs practice. He's a skilled government and political affairs professional with more than 20 years of experience. And before that, he was the chief of staff to a number of high-profile Democrats in the Congress. He is an adjunct professor in issues management in the School of Political Management and serves on the board of directors of the Public Affairs Council. So now our panel is complete. I was saying that we gave the panelists a list of suggested things they could talk about for a few minutes before we opened it up to questions, but I think the core question is probably how in this job market, in this never-ending recession, how do I, as a new college graduate or a new owner of a master's degree, how do I find a job? So,
Great difficulty.
I'll start with you if you like.
Sure, I'm most prepared here. So I guess when my best advice is the path of least resistance is the path of least risk for a potential employer. And so to the extent that you can go into a situation where the employer doesn't incur risk, but you get to show your talents to that employer, I think that is probably the best foot in the door. And the couple of, I mean, that's what internships are all about. And I think clearly That's an option that I'm sure you're all aware of and have probably already taken advantage of. But it can be useful, particularly in a tight job market after graduation. I know in my firm, many of the interns we have already graduated, and that's and almost all of the entry-level employees that we hire come through the internship program. But the other way to do it, and the way I did it in my career, is through political campaigns, where you begin as a volunteer, you become an employee, and again, the candidate in this case, the campaign organization, doesn't incur risk, and so they welcome your help. And then over time, your mission is to make it get to the point where they can't live without you, and then you come back to them and give them a choice about whether they want to pay you, or you might have to find other opportunities. And frankly, in my career, that's how I began. And I was actually a sort of a late bloomer. I didn't graduate from undergrad till I was 27, but then worked on a campaign for a relatively young state representative who was running for Congress for the first time, named Barney Frank. I've kind of dated myself now, and for those of you who know Barney Frank. But that's exactly how it worked then. And then at each step in my career, each kind of flex point in my career for the next probably at least 15 years, anytime I wanted to make a big move, I would go back out onto the campaign trail at a higher level, get that credential, which always took me to another level. So fundamentally, it's finding a situation where you can show your talents without exposing the employer to risk, and then dazzling them.
Well, the military's hiring. Just throwing that out there. I'm not sure my situation applies. I'm old enough to have had a lowish draft number, which moved me into the military, which then got me into politics. I would say the important thing is build your network, and that can be through your associations, here at George Washington, across the street in SMPA, you've got people who know people who've been there, done that, and can introduce you around town, and don't underestimate that. I don't envy your situation. I've got a recent college graduate in the family as well, and I don't envy his situation. But find something that helps to improve your resume. It sounds simple. But are you, as you look for a job, are you involved in something? Are you involved in something that's actually meaningful? Whether you're getting, a few dollars as part of that or not, it's a resume builder, it's a network builder. Are you writing? Are you on the radio? Are you doing things that, again, dazzle somebody so that at that moment where the opportunity and the connection occurs, you're ready? I think that's important. Find something that is interesting and meaningful. Have fun. Nothing wrong with getting paid to do something that you want to do, and it's important, and then that's how you'll be different than perhaps a couple of us. I spent 26 years at the same corporation, the United States military. Chances are you won't do that. You'll move every few years from this thing to that thing. You might be involved in the private sector, move to the public sector, and then back again. But it will always be a case of, who do you know, and even more importantly, what do you know, and what do you bring through the door when you're being interviewed, for a prospective position. I just, probably one last point. When I was a military officer and I was nominated to serve on the National Security Council staff, which is how I then made the evolution from military affairs to policy to politics. the high-level individual interviewing me at the White House who had not met me before I walked through his door, at the end of the interview, he said, it's a little twist on your resume. He said, name 3 people that you know that I know. And I went, ooh. I named 3 names, and he called one of them. And he simply said, good guy. My friend and former colleague said, good guy. And I was brought into the Clinton team, and that's 12 years ago, and everything I've done since then was rooted in kind of that moment. So, work the people that are here at GW, and then just broaden your network, be doing things, and the right opportunity will come along. And maybe one last point would be never stop learning. You might think I'm going to leave here and know everything I need to know. My impression of what's happening in the world, we're going to be relearning things for a long time. Even somebody with gray hairs here at a podium. So keep learning, keep understanding, keep a focus on what is that big picture, what's that perspective that I bring to an employer, and then once you're in on the ground floor, connect what you are doing, even as an intern or as a junior officer, to what the CEO or your superiors think is important and necessary. If you keep that big picture in mind, then you'll have the opportunity to advance within the organization that is pleased to hire you.
They covered a lot of these things, but I mean, I think that your reputation in this town is critical to your success in this town. And you begin to forge that when you are working as a press intern in Senator Kennedy's office, clipping newspapers, and then making copies for 3 hours and distributing them into mailboxes with a cheery smile on your face. And then when asked to stay until 8 o'clock to transcribe evening shows or your boss being on it, you will gladly say, yes, I will. I think that working really hard in this town sets, defines who you are, and it also gives people a sense of what you will be when you come and work for them. My biggest asset for me was working as a press assistant in Senator Kennedy's office, giving it my all, knowing I wasn't going to get paid for a semester. But then when that position opened up at the DNC, 2 of the press people in that office had been on the Kerry campaign with the people who were hiring, and that pile of 200 resumes, mine floated up to the top because they put in a call. And I think that you can also translate that to, thinking about your professors here, not just asking your professors, but think about what areas in communications you might want to be in. So do you want to work in Congress? Do you want to work on a campaign? Do you want to work at an NGO? If so, what kind of issue areas are you interested in? Start asking your professors if they know people in those areas. Or start looking at the different NGOs and simply emailing people and saying, hey, would you be willing for me to just come in and have take you out for a cup of coffee or meet with you for 30 minutes just to get your insights on how I can explore opportunities in this field? Because for me, I wouldn't be where I was today if it wasn't for those people who took the time to guide me along the path. And because of that, I'm more willing to take the time to guide others down the path. And then I'd also suggest that as you move up the ladder, you do the same. Mentor your interns, because I have interns that worked for me at the DNC and in Webb's office that are now press secretaries at Department of Transportation and at various administration offices. So you never know who you're working with, where they're going to be in 5 years too. And if you are not humble and work well with others, I think that it can in many ways come back to you, because this is an incredibly small town the longer you work here. I don't want to take any more tips because
No, I think you did a great job, and I would agree with everything that everyone said so far. I'd add to that, be flexible, because you may think one thing is going to happen with your career and your path and things like that, but be open to new opportunities and new ways of looking at things. Honestly, did I wake up and say I want to be an association executive when I was, 12 years old? That was not on my list. But I knew, especially with my college education, that I loved giving back to the community, that I loved serving, that's something that I really appealed to me and really fell into my career. That being said, use any connections that you have. We're mentioning associations you might have here on campus. Most of those organizations will have some kind of career pathing, mentoring, relationship that they're trying to give back to students. They're trying to get students into their profession, just like we're trying to do with people, to get people into working in associations. But don't just think, this is the one path that I can have. Go out there, see what skill sets and what interests you have that match some job descriptions out there. Whether you're looking online or looking in your career center here or networking with people, be curious about what others are doing and really try to learn from others' mistakes, but also other successes. And so if you can get into that kind of mentoring relationship, I'm sure none of us are doing necessarily what we thought we were going to be doing 25 years ago, or less time for some of us that are younger. It's just, you never know where your path is going to take you. I would also suggest just make the point that depending on where you're at, it also depends on what the job market is like. DC, we're not that bad. And I see it every day. Actually, it's been interesting running a career center that even with all the crazy summer that we had with the budget and disasters and everything that's been going on in the economic uncertainty, the job market's actually been going pretty well, particularly in DC. And I see a lot of nonprofits hiring, I see a lot of associations hiring, and employers themselves are a lot more optimistic than I thought they would be and that I had budgeted for them to be. But it's actually, it's been pretty impressive. So use that opportunity and just be open to new things.
Before Moshe offers his view, I should mention, I omitted the fact that he is currently the senior producer of the CBS News early show after spending a number of years in New York, so please.
I only have like 2 more networks to go. I haven't been at CNN or MSNBC, but by then, so now I've run through a number of them. Now I just have to sit still for a little bit because I'm running out of networks unless you guys create one. I'm going to echo a lot of what these guys had to say, and in fact, Kim's story about being kind to people around the city. It's a small town, and you got to guard your reputation. And I'm sure, how many seniors do we have in the room? Sure. Most of you, and then the rest of you are junior or under, or younger, or grad students. Okay. So most of your time, at least in undergrad, is up. So hopefully you guys have gotten some practical experience, internships around town, et cetera. But back to the point regarding your reputation, number one, I hope you guys have all been smart with your Facebook pages, or if not, take down your walls or all the nonsense. Clean that up, because in this Google world, the first thing that we do when we get your resume and we're partially interested is Google your name and see what is going on out there. Secondly, her story is interesting because when I was at Fox News, there was a student named Megan Whitmore who was at GW and was part-time. She replaced me when I moved onto the campaign trail at Fox as Wallace's researcher, and now is the press secretary to Eric Cantor, the majority leader of the House. Now that I'm at CBS, I'm talking to her every time I need to talk to Cantor. And so be kind to people, guard your reputation, I think is first things first. Along the lines of what she said too, be the first one in and first one out. Never ask when, you want to know when you have to be in, but come in a half an hour early and stay late and do your homework and come in already prepared with ideas. Look at kind of who the entry-level people are in that office and the skill sets they have and what they're doing, and start to prepare yourselves in that way, to think in that way, watch what they do, shadow what they do, along those lines. Also, do your homework. If any of you are taking Professor Shanahan's class, you should have Googled him, you should know his bio, you should know his experiences, and for that matter, that of all your professors, to see kind of opportunity, because in many cases you're taking classes with professors who may have had experience in the practical world that you hope to have one day. So you utilize them for their contacts, for their knowledge, for their know-how, for their networks. You're in a city here with lots of professionals. Be aware of the events that are going on around here. There's forums like this, dozens of them every hour, every day of the week. Yesterday you had 3 former Homeland Security secretaries speaking across the street. And, you know, at least the formers you can approach, or their former staffers, or, and if you're looking for something slightly more fun than listening to 3 former Homeland Security secretaries, you could go to Capitol Hill Happy Hour, where most bars are filled with staffers who work in all of our fields all the time. So be social, network, be aggressive, and I tell this to my interns, one of whom is actually here today, be aggressive without being annoying, is the line. Ride that line as carefully as you can, especially those of you looking to go into journalism. What we look for in how you apply for the job are often the skill sets that we want you to have on the job, that you're aggressive, that you stay on top of us. You know, those of us, especially those of us who work in television who have ADD and have a million things going on all day, we lose track or we forget things or whatever, but it's good to send reminders. And Professor Shanahan would agree, there's a few things that you can do that journalists enjoy. 1 is to praise them, 2 is to offer them free food, and 3 is to offer us the opportunity to talk about ourselves. And so anything along those lines, everyone's email address is possible. It's easy to figure out people's email addresses, their phone numbers. Really utilize the opportunity and the location that you guys have here, et cetera. And I have a whole bunch of other things, but well, I'm sure we'll get to that.
This is sponsored by a graduate program and by the undergraduate program. It occurs to me that frequently students come to me and they say, well, should I go to graduate school? In this job market, in communications, should students go to graduate school? Anybody who's got a view?
Well, I'm actually, I went to undergraduate here and majored in political communications, and then I graduated in 2005. And I then got my master's while working full-time at the DNC at night over 2 years. So for me, getting my master's complemented what I was doing during my day job. But I would recommend to really try and fill out your professional experience and practical experience in addition to your academic learning. Because when I get resumes now for a press assistant, they're 25 and they have a master's degree or 2 or 3, and they don't have any professional experience. So I'm going to be the one, I'm going to go with the 23-year-old who is pursuing a master's at night, but has had 2 internships in a familiar field. So, you know, I think that having a balance is very important when pursuing additional education.
I mean, from my vantage point in journalism, I don't think there's any match for practical experience, even if it came at your campus newspaper or TV station or radio station or internships. That, you know, it's important to have that journalism background in the classroom, but frankly, unless that I've seen someone who's been out there in a professional setting in whatever capacity, those are the people I'm going to look at first, because I know that they've handled themselves in a professional environment and have tried a variety of things. And so that, you know, that'd be a huge thing for me. You know, with that said, having a master's degree from Columbia or Medill or any of these J schools around the country, GPSM over here, or GSPM, yes, also adds to your credibility, but you got to have a balance, and especially when it comes to journalism, you know, most of us in the field want to see that you've been out there and haven't been just writing stories for classes for 4 or 6 years.
Yeah, it's an interesting question, because I look at it from 2 directions, because I have a son who is a senior in college, and I can't imagine, and when I think about him, I think you absolutely have to go to graduate school. I'm not going to send you into the world with just an undergraduate degree. But then when I think about me as a hiring entity at Fleischman Hillard, I honestly don't look that closely at graduate credentials. I just like everybody here has said, I think I more look at practical experience. Now, if it's an intern, the practical experience is right before my eyes, and I can tell whether that person would be good for a position. That said, I do think, as I observe the younger people in my office, a lot of them go to graduate school after having joined our firm, and it's mostly just to enrich themselves and to build up their knowledge base, as opposed to a ticket to get a job. So that's just what I'm kind of free associating my response, and it's a little bifurcated. But in terms of hiring, I don't know that a graduate degree in and of itself is that impactful. But I do think it's worthwhile just to build the whole person.
Do you think a graduate degree becomes more important 6 or 8 or 10 years into your career?
Yes.
Why?
Well, because it has more meaning, and there's a foundation there. I mean, there are X number of people in this town with law degrees who have never used it. This thought was a useful thing to have, and it is, but they're non-practicing lawyers. I think the idea of going to graduate school in this environment that we see moving forward is going to be an essential credential, but having a foundation first so then you know more confidently, okay, how can the graduate degree enrich a skill that I know I'm going to need for something I've already demonstrated I'm interested in doing, good at doing, and want to do in the future. So I think for the most part, people who then, who get a grounding, get a skill, and then are able to add to that through a graduate program, end up better off because of that combination.
I would, just to add on to that, I would definitely agree. One of the things that you need to think about too is if you go right from undergrad to grad school, are you still going to like the field that you're going into? And you don't want to come out with a degree in one particular field and then actually get in and have the practical experience and realize, I really don't like this. I've seen a number of people that do that either with law school or some other graduate degrees, but then once you kind of move along, I see when I look at positions that are more higher level, they're not requiring master's degrees at lower level positions, but as you move up, that is something that you're definitely going to be needing. But it might not be something you need right away. You also have to look at the debt load that you want to take on at this point, and which is also something to think about, just in terms of your living situation. And you want to be able to take on a lower level job in a field that you might be interested in, but not have to worry about frankly, having too much debt, even though it's good debt to have. But make sure you don't get too far down the line, because I'm at the point where I need to think about my grad degree, and I still haven't done that yet. So, make sure you get that in.
So all of you have a considerable amount of experience with interns. Let's flip it over. Describe an intern from hell.
I had an intern once. He was getting it for credit too, and I had to write an evaluation of him. I think I gave him a D, which for internships, I felt bad, but I didn't feel bad because he deserved it, and he needed to learn from it. There was an experience where the senator was going to go on Lou Dobbs to talk about something or other, and prior to him going on, Lou had said, we have a poll tonight. If you agree with Senator Webb's position that, we should give our veterans education when they return from war, is that patriotic, or blah, blah, blah. And I said, so-and-so, will you check in and see how we're doing in this poll so we know what we're walking into, and if he's asked, we can handle that. And he went on to say, how do I find that? And, I don't have a problem with people asking questions, but you are old enough and smart enough to use your critical thinking skills. If Lou Dobbs said he posted something on his web, or posted a poll, it's probably going to be on his website. So a quick Google search of Lou Dobbs and then going to what that poll was what I needed him to do. And so it really, it was just, it was part of a cycle of lacking critical thinking skills when that was just an easy button.
I guess what I'm looking for is what are the attributes that would make you not hire an intern or recommend an intern to a potential employer?
I mean, I spent 5 years at a think tank here in Washington, and actually the former interns turned junior staffers were the ones who did the pruning, from the high stack to the the handful that I then interviewed to be my intern. So in their weeding out process, when we would look at the 5 survivors, and then there'd be another stack, they said, you can go through this if you want to, and I'd pull out a couple just to test them and say, okay, what was wrong with this person? And they had a series of questions that they went through, and they were looking for this. Most of these were done on the phone, and they were looking for audio cues. If I ask a question, does the person have an answer? Is it coherent? Is it cogent? Is this person paying attention to the world in which we live? Do they have an opinion? Is it an opinion that is, I can tell you everything I know, or is it an opinion that is focused to be able to carry on a meaningful conversation? They were very, very critical, and so it gets back to that kind of big picture. What do you know about the world, and when you are interviewed either to be an intern or a junior staffer, what do you bring into the organization as either a skill set, a knowledge base, a curiosity, an energy? Those are the things that, and can you get along? We've all had we spend large staffs, and you spend most of your management time dealing with 1 or 2 people who you just like to take out back and do something illegal, but you can't. As you said, if there's a sense of risk here anywhere, I mean, we'll take somebody who is innovative and creative and take a risk on that person, but if there's a sense that this is a person who's just not going to fit into the work environment that we have, that person, that resume moves to the side.
Yeah, and I would just simply, just kind of take that down. Essentially 2 categories of failed interns. It would be people who just don't have the skills, the skills, and people who have a bad attitude. Now, I have had, and there's a continuum on both. There are people, you can be a little lacking in skills, but if you have a great attitude, you're in good shape. But if you have a bad attitude, your skills don't matter. And so I think, because you can't really teach a good attitude. And so I think that, and it's been talked about here, is it's your mindset going in. The attitude has to be top notch, and that can compensate for maybe, you can teach the other stuff.
And I assume all that applies to a junior full-time
Absolutely.
Professional staff.
It actually applies to senior people. I mean, there are, we have a culture, and there are people who, maybe bring in a lot of money, but if they are a problem in terms of their attitude, that is very hard to fix.
One of my jobs in SMPA is to be the coordinator of internships, and I say if there's one thing to take with you into an internship or a new job, it is don't wait around. If you see an opening, if you don't have anything in particular to do, find somebody whose job you like and attach yourself to that person and get them to give you work, learn from them, connect with them.
Yeah, actually, it's funny. My son just did an internship in my office, nowhere, as far away from me as he could possibly be. But I had a new look. I was able to see the office through the eyes of an intern, which I actually never did. And that was his biggest challenge, frankly, is that sometimes the work just sort of dries up and you got nothing to do, and the staff just don't have it. And how you handle those blank spots is really telling. And it's a great opportunity, as you said, to really show your stuff.
Meg is about to give us all the hook here, but she says I have time for one more question. We're in the middle of a technological revolution in all of the communication fields. how much specific technical knowledge do new people going into these fields need to have? I'll just stop it with that. What do you need to know, given what we know about how rapidly the technologies are changing?
You mean in television alone, we've gone from an era where it took. We now have one person who we dub either digital journalists or video journalists at CBS doing the job that we once had 6 or 7 people doing. They're using the camera, they're editing, they're producing, they're doing the audio on the camera, they're writing the story for .com. They may be appearing on television as a reporter. Like we've been said about a lot of things here, don't be too good for any sort of experience. I think you want to enable yourselves to have the most skill sets possible. Because at the end of the day, I might not have an opening for a reporter or a producer, but I might have a video editor opening, or I might need someone who writes for .com or who downloads video for .com. And having all those various skill sets, I think, would be very important to have. Knowing how to utilize the internet and how to research and how to navigate the Googles and the Tubes and the Twitters and the Facebooks and all of that are huge. At the end of the day, it makes the difference between, in some major news event, a plane goes down in a Reno air show, and your ability to navigate Twitter will get us the best video of the people who shot it with their cell phones and the most compelling guest, because you've most effectively navigated the internet these days, and it makes a whole lot of a difference. So I think as far as journalism is concerned, you guys, even if you see yourselves being the next Jim Fallows of the Atlantic Monthly, you should still know how to use a video camera. There's a lot of video being posted these days on WallStreetJournal.com and Forbes.com and all the various newspaper websites. So viewing all of those of you who want to go into journalism, or frankly all fields, whether it's comms or anything else, and knowing all multimedia and knowing how to write effectively and communicate and public speak and all these things, I think would best help you guys as you kind of pursue all the potential careers next door.
Anybody else on the technology?
Just to kind of add to that, I mean, it's definitely important to have all the basic skills. I mean, if you know the technology but you can't articulate it to someone, that's not going to help. But really keep, so you have to have those reading and writing communication skills that you all are learning here. But definitely keep on top of technology. The technology when I left college was completely different than what it is now, 13 years later. But I learned how to evolve with it. So, I might not be the expert on search engine optimization, but I'm going to figure out how to work with the person that is and get them to work with my other tech provider to work together to make sure that our site is getting the most exposure out there. Now, would I even have known what that was 7 years ago? No. But I've kept on top of everything, and it's definitely something that you all are going to be expected to do just because of the generation that you're in. And they're going to expect that you are very tech savvy.
I think just one thing to add would be, for when you come into any organization, the greatest challenge inside the bubble is to understand what's happening outside the bubble. And technology is now a mechanism. It's almost like, in a military term, it's a source of intelligence. So it's one thing is to have a familiarity with these technologies, but the other thing is to be able to interpret what does this YouTube or that Facebook trend or that Twitter trend, what does that tell you in your ability to synthesize that information and provide knowledge to the people that are going to hire you, either in a temporary situation with an internship or junior staff. Your ability to interpret the world for an organization will make you a very valuable employee.
And just one last point. I just want to turn something around a bit. I know you've all learned the lesson from other people's hard pain of be careful what you put on Facebook, be careful what you put online, it lives there forever. I would turn that around and consciously build an online record that can help your job prospects. Start a blog, start posting to the blog, put videos up on the blog. Even if nobody sees the blog, and it may be better if they don't, you'll be building your skills. And it could be just, a restaurant review blog or something, but I do think that just the process of, creating and posting content will enhance your capabilities. Ideally, it'll be good enough that when you go into a job interview and you can show it to them, and this is what I do. I think that's a really good option for building up some skill sets.
Build your own personal website.
Yeah.
It's eventually going to replace resume. Thank you very much, panel. Can we please give it up? Meg?